Hello, I'm Tushal from BSc Data Science and Mathematics of Christ University, and today I'll be explaining two different dashboards. So, this is the first of my two dashboards, and which is about motor insurance claims. The dataset has 1000 claims and about 39 columns, and it's from Kaggle. So, my aim was to see where most of the claim money goes and where fraud is highest. So, in this dashboard, I have 5 different KPIs where the total claim amount is around 53 million across 1000 claims, average claim is around 52,000, and the fraud rate is 24.7%, which means about 247 claims were reported as fraud, which is roughly 1 in 4, and the fraud exposure is 15 million. So this gives a quick summary before we go into the charts. So the first chart over here is a stacked bar chart, which is the claim value by type, which means that incident type, so single and multi-vehicle collisions make up almost all of the money, while park, car and theft claims are very small. So collisions are where the cost is. Also, I have added a filter over here, meaning to say that if I deselect any one, then the chart changes. I can deselect all of them, and I can also select all of them. Yeah, deselect only 3, one will remain, and select all. And this is a legend for the corresponding chart. So next is the map chart. So on the map I've shown the claim amount by state, and I've put the fraud rate on the labels, as you can see. So New York and South Carolina have the highest claim amounts, but one interesting thing I noticed is that the states with the most money are not the states with the most fraud. For example, Ohio over here has a smaller claim amount but a high fraud rate of around 43.48%. The next is the fraud heat map. Out of all charts over here in this dashboard, I found this heat map the most useful because it clearly shows where the fraud is concentrated. The rows are severity and the columns are incident type, and the color is the fraud rate. So the darker cells mean more fraud. So you can see over here, major damage row is much darker than the rest, while with fraud around 58 to 63%, while the other severities are much lower. So one interesting point is that total loss claims don't have the highest fraud, even though they have the biggest payout. So it looks like the severity is just being used to increase the claim amount. The next is the donut chart, which shows the claim split into injury, property and vehicle. And the vehicle part is about 72% of the total. So cost control should focus on repairs and parts. Then I have also added these two charts. The first one is fraud by age, which is a bar chart, which shows the fraud rate by age, where 60 plus group is the highest, though it's a small group. And this trend claim chart shows the total claims on a daily basis. So it's a line chart. Then also I've added actions in the dashboard, wherein if you click any one bar over here, then all the other charts gets changed. The values in the other charts get changed, as you can see if I just click on this. So this was the first of my two dashboards. Also I have made a second advanced dashboard, this one, with a tree map, lollipop chart, butterfly chart, pie chart and a bubble chart, which is mainly for the fraud team for deeper analysis. So the recommendations and limitations of the first dashboard are that check all major claims with a second review before paying, then look at how severity is being decided, and focus cost control on the vehicle claim part. The two limitations which I found out were the data is only for about 3 months, so the trend line goes up and down instead of showing a clear pattern, and the fraud flag is for reported fraud, not proven fraud. That's the first dashboard. Thank you. So this is my second dashboard, which is about a bank marketing campaign where the bank called customers and offered them a term deposit. The data is the UCI bank marketing dataset, which is the real data from a bank in Portugal. So over here I have 5 KPIs which consists of about 31,000 calls, which gave 3,700 deposits. So the conversion rate is around 12%. On an average, the customer was called 2.8 times and the average call was around 4.3 minutes. So the bank made a lot of calls for a fairly small number of deposits. So now coming to the first chart is the effort by versus outcome by month, which is the main chart of the dashboard. The bars show the number of calls in each month and the line shows the conversion rate for that particular month. So you can see May over here has the most calls, but its success rate is pretty low, around 7%. And months like March, September, October and December have very few calls but a much higher success rate, which is above 40%. So the bank is making most of the calls in the weakest month and very few calls in the best months. So this is a planning issue and it can be fixed without any extra cost. Coming to this chart, it shows the conversion rate by job. Students and retirees have the highest success rate while workers have the lowest. But the best groups are also small, so it looks like they were not called enough. Now this chart is a scatter plot which shows account balance versus call duration. So customers with a higher balance are more likely to subscribe, which makes sense for a deposit. But many calls are still made to customers with very low or negative balance. So this scatter plot basically compares the call duration and balance colored by result. So the customers who subscribe are usually the ones with longer calls and higher balances. Now coming to this chart, which is a donut chart which shows most of the customers were never contacted before, but the small group who contacted earlier and said yes have a very high success rate now. So past customers are the most valuable group. So this donut chart basically shows the campaign outcome by different distribution of customers. Then comes the final chart, which is a stacked bar chart which shows the campaign success by age group and marital status. Over here I've added filters, so based on these filters the chart changes. And I've also added few dashboard actions wherein if you click on this chart it takes you to another chart, which is the donut chart again. So over here when I click on the donut chart it takes me to a new URL where I've added the dashboard action. So it takes me to this URL, and if I just hover over this chart it changes the values of the other charts. So I have also made an advanced dashboard for the same data set with tree map and the line chart, pie chart, balance, heat map and the age chart together for the campaign team to analyze the results. So the recommendations and limitations for this dashboard are: make fewer calls in May. The recommendations firstly are: make fewer calls in May and more in good months, prefer customers with higher balances and fewer loans, call past customers first, and limit the number of calls to the same customer again and again. So the two limitations are: the call duration is only known after the call, so it can't be used to decide who to call. And the best months also have the fewest calls, so I can't be fully sure the month itself is the reason. Also the data has the month but not the year, so I can't show a year on year trend. So that was about the two dashboards. Thank you for watching.